Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
The conversation everywhere is about reproductive rights. But is there more to the story? So the headline reads, New Blue State Law Gives Government Increased Power to Target Pregnancy Centers. New Blue State Law. You know, I was talking the other day with some people, and I went to the Planned Parenthood website and looked at their map. And it's an interesting map because it's the world as Planned Parenthood would like the world to be, or I should say the United States, the way Planned Parenthood would like the United States to be. So there's a map, and it has different colors. And you scroll across the state, and Planned Parenthood defines how that state matches up with the Planned Parenthood goal of reality, what it is that they truly want. So I'm going across and I'm counting up the states. And of course, it makes a lot of very interesting questions. But the thing that struck me was Planned Parenthood chose to use white for the state that matches up exactly with what they want. And then the state that, say, doesn't, it would be the deepest, like red, like deep maroon red. So the state that gives them what they want is just blank. It's white. It's a simple white color. And Illinois is one of those key states. It sits right in the middle of the country, and it's white as white can be. And when you roll over it basically shows that, for Planned Parenthood's point of view, there are no restrictions on abortion in Illinois, period, according to Planned Parenthood. Zip. There's no parental notification. There's no informed consent. There's no waiting period. Nothing. There's no question on fetal viability. Abortion is just like it was through Roe versus Wade, through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason in the state of Illinois. So then up comes this headline. Headline stating, New Blue State Law. Well, actually, it's not a blue state. The state they're talking about is Illinois, and Illinois is a white state. They've got everything that Planned Parenthood wants. Gives government increased power to target pregnancy centers. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, how can you get more power? It's already a white state. I mean, they've already, like it's like Narnia. It's already frozen in ice. You got everything you want. You got the state frozen right where you want it. But wait, there's more. And what's the more? They just passed a law in Illinois that says that the government can now go after crisis pregnancy centers, because they're proclaiming that crisis pregnancy centers are breaking the law.
So is everything in their favor? Yes. But do they control everything? And can they control everything? And can they punish any opposition? Now they can. It's funny. I wanted to pick your brain on several things. One, whether it turns out a white state or we're talking blue versus red states, that's part of the manifestation of the two-party dilemma that we live. But it's blue state, not United States. Certainly not Constitution, certainly not spirit of Declaration of Independence or, anything like that. And then it's giving them a power, a new power. Last time we were visiting on the pro-abortion lobby, they were wanting to be a branch of government and become an absolute blank check for death and right for death. I think we're seeing this, but this may be the footprint. This may be the blueprint of how they plan to enforce and enact it.
Yeah, well, it just reminds me of the old Soviet Empire, because in essence, the first thing is to get the power, and then to make sure you have all the power, then to eliminate anyone who is a threat to your power, who thinks differently, speaks differently, or acts outside the corridors of your power. So if Planned Parenthood gets total control of a state like they have in Illinois, the next thing they do is they begin to move against their enemies to restrict their free speech, their right to assembly, their right to protest, their right to redress the government for grievances, to basically make everyone who disagrees with them a lesser than second-class citizen that has no rights to speak, to think, to pray in public. I mean, I guess they'll be banning pro-life bumper stickers in Illinois soon.
What's interesting, just so people don't think that you're jumping to irrational conclusions, the story says the new law allows the Attorney General of Illinois to investigate complaints. So now all it takes is somebody to complain. So you get a far left wing, doesn't even have to be anybody that's really offended. They could just do it on the offensive. So all it takes is somebody to complain. No law to be broken, no law that is really described and written and defined. The new law allows the Attorney General of Illinois to investigate complaints against centers accused of using such tactics and strengthens the power of the Attorney General's office to prosecute cases and issue fines up to $50,000. So now they can harass them. The law is about...
And bankrupt them.
The law is about clarifying the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practices Act, which just has nothing absolutely to do with. And then I love this about the 7 paragraphs in. Well, critics of the law, not that you're allowed to be a critic formally. Well, this is
at least
your last,
not inside state boundaries.
Yes, this is your last chance to be a critic without being fined. Critics of the law have noted the ambiguity surrounding what exactly will define deception or misinformation under the new law, expressing concern that the government could use that vagueness to unfairly target the pro-life pregnancy centers. Well, I think those few critics get it and see it coming a mile away.
So does an ultrasound now become illegal contraband? Okay, but here's the thing, Michael, this isn't a one-off. This isn't a make-believe. This isn't a reactionary overreaction. No, because when you take a look at the amendment that Planned Parenthood's trying to pass to create a new right, the right to abortion in Ohio law, it says quite clearly that the state shall not directly or indirectly burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate against either an individual's voluntary exercise of this right or a person or entity that assists an individual in exercising this right. Now, the right is the right to reproductive decisions, not the right to abortion exclusively. So if someone attempts to, of course, if the state shall not interfere or indirectly or directly, then certainly an individual cannot either. So they cannot burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate against. Well, what's interfering with? Is interfering with publishing a pro-life manual or doing a pro-life commercial? Or once this is a right, then you're discriminating against somebody's rights. I mean, they ultimately want to silence and remove all of their opponents. Obviously, they're not that impressed that they have a majority opinion if they got to silence everybody else.
I was exposed as an endorser to the preborn organization, and what it exposed me to was the power of the ultrasound. You mentioned it in passing just a few minutes ago. There's nothing that impacts the decision that a woman makes, which, by the way, unless you're pro-death, if you're pro-choice and it's her choice, you shouldn't care which way she chooses. You should have no vested interest if she chooses life or death. This law indicates they have a predisposition to the choice they want her to make. But would ultrasound fall under misinformation or deceptive? Would informed consent? Would parental consent? And then I just mentioned the most, I mean, we go down the list.
Yeah, all those things are gone. They're all gone. But even more, the commercials that you were running.
Oh.
The time you were running in Tennessee, you could never run those in Illinois.
Right.
You couldn't because you'd be interfering with this. So this sense of the totalitarian regime where the conditioners come in, they change everybody's mind. Now we're creating a right. We should be celebrating our godlike powers to create rights because until this year, until the fall of Roe versus Wade, in American public life, people didn't believe that we could invent rights with paper and pen. They believed our rights, like the Declaration of Independence says, are given to us by God and are inalienable. But now we can make them up as we want based upon popularity. So if you're the cool kids or you're the popular cause, then you get rights. But if you're not, you don't get rights. That's what this comes down to. This comes down to a playground fight. So it made me think about something that I read in a work by C.S. Lewis. In Mere Christianity, in the chapter called The Shocking Alternative, Lewis writes this. He says, that is the key to history. Terrific energy is expended. Civilizations are built up. Excellent institutions devised. But each time something goes wrong, some fatal flaw always brings the selfish and cruel people to the top, and it all slides back into misery and ruin. In fact, the machine conks. It seems to start up all right, run a few yards, and then it breaks down. They're trying to run it on the wrong juice. I mean, this is Lewis just saying this is the repeat of history over and over and over again. The conditioners come in, they sell their bill of goods. Then the next thing that happens is the powerful people rise to the top and then basically begin to prosecute and persecute everybody else. And this is why we have a form of government where our rights come from God and everyone's right, minority and majority, have to be protected. Now, this is very, very, very troubling because basically the popular kids or the popular causes have rights, and everybody else, shut up or go to jail. I mean, this is what you're looking at. Now, of course, shut up or go to jail reminded me of COVID, which kind of brings us to the next point of conversation you introduced, which is Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Can I just do one thing really quick before that? A question. Roe v. Wade was when I was 9 years old. The Supreme Court admitted the wrong ruling when I was 57 years old. And the struggle of pro-life versus pro-choice, or as they would say, pro-choice versus anti-abortion, has pretty much been blue state, red state, as we talked about in this discussion. Is this an honest moment? I've said there's a lot of things we haven't been honest about. Life begins when it's wanted is the number one point of dishonesty. The Bible starts with the creation of life. This argument is yet to get to the creation of life and the value and the sacredness of life. But do you see this as blue states now becoming actually pro-death, period, end of story, whether they call them blue or white? They're now pro-death. And I'm not so certain, or I'm fearful, and I'm asking you, and have red states become ineffective pro-life? Or have they almost become like turn a blind eye to whatever choice, it's none of my business? Either way, these are great gains for death and not for life.
I ran the Planned Parenthood math off their states, and it looks like right now they're claiming they've got almost what they want or exactly what they want in 21 states. Now, prior to Roe versus Wade, you basically had 3 or 4 states that had legalized abortion for any reason through all 9 months of pregnancy. Now, you would have expected those 4 states to come back quickly, and Illinois being one of those states, you would have expected to go that way very quickly. Of course, the East Coast states are all there as well. What's different in the 50 years is now the Western states. There's a block of 4 states in the West that are now Planned Parenthood pro-abortion states that were clearly pro-life states back in the 70s and throughout the 80s. So the West has been the big change. So I decided to match up that map, the Planned Parenthood wish list map, the Planned Parenthood dream map, and I matched that up against 270 to win, which is the matching up those states with their electoral college votes. Now, it's just theoretical. All I did was match it up out of curiosity. But if you take the Planned Parenthood white states and the slight pink states, the ones that they've got almost everything they want or all they want, and you match them up to the states that are going toward pro-life, you end up with 22 to 28 pro-abortion to pro-life. And when you run the electoral college, if we ever had a presidential election that simply came down to abortion, one single issue, a national referendum on the electoral college votes, the pro-life vote would win overwhelmingly. That's where we are right now. Their goal is to change that. So even though they present themselves as this is the coolest thing, we're the coolest kids, everybody wants it, everybody's doing it, the truth is they haven't won the public debate yet. They just act like they have.
Now, using that one issue to energize your base while it's lacking energy because of the candidates and performance of policy, that's a different story. So they can gin up in their 22 states a lot of enthusiasm in the base for a perceived threat that doesn't even exist. If anything's on the aggression, death is, abortion is, not the taking away of. That can be effective, but a flat out vote, America's still pro-life.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
When you think about the basic approach, which is be pro-abortion or shut up, which is what they're saying about Illinois and what they'd like to say in every state, it reminds me of where we were with COVID, which reminds me of the conversation that we were having about Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I want to play the clip. I came across and I hit play. It's the first thing that struck me, David, was not that I was feeling sorry for Zuckerberg. But wouldn't this have been refreshing if this had been his testimony before Congress, right? So there,
well said.
yeah. So there's the Zuckerberg when he's before Congress.
Thank you, Senator, for your question. My staff will get back with you and give you an answer.
And then there's this, in hindsight. Now, I'm going to be gracious and merciful because that's what God calls me to be. Plus, I'm learning from...
Yeah. You can be gracious and merciful. That's fine. But I do want to ask one thing. Does this guy own anything that has a collar? I mean, come on. He's the richest, youngest billionaire, multi-billionaire in the history of the world, and the man can't get a shirt that has a collar on it.
What I was going to say is he's probably wearing flip-flops too. What I was trying to say is after the interview with Dr. Allen, I'm trying to take the high road. So I can't go inside of him. It could be that Mark Zuckerberg does not understand these issues of which we're talking about until they happen and it's too late. But the candor in the pressure to censor, that's the bombshell.
Yeah.
That an administration is pressuring technocracy to control narratives in order to control people with no definitions thereof. Remember what we were just talking about, that they're going to set these laws in these white states and nobody's going to define what misinformation is or what, pressure is.
Yeah, because now we're at the state level. That's right.
Right. Yeah. So here's Zuckerberg saying, well, we were getting all this pressure and then we found out, all the things they were having us censor were really true. Here's Mark Zuckerberg, not before Congress, we could actually compare to, but this is Mark Zuckerberg on a podcast revealing the pressure from the administration and pressure to censor truth.
So misinformation, I think, has been a really tricky one because there are things that are kind of obviously false, right? That are maybe factual, but may not be harmful. So it's like, all right, are you going to censor someone for just being wrong? It's, if there's no kind of harm implication of what they're doing, I think there's a bunch of real kind of issues and challenges there. But then I think that there are other places where it is, just take some of the stuff around COVID earlier on in the pandemic, where there were, real health implications, but there hadn't been time to fully vet a bunch of the scientific assumptions. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of the kind of establishment on that, kind of waffled on a bunch of facts and, asked for a bunch of things to be censored that in retrospect ended up being, more debatable or true. And that stuff is really tough, right? And really undermines trust in that. And
so, that's what I was just struck by. Well, that ain't the same guy I saw in Congress.
Well, and look, this guy's making a big admission that the federal government was pressuring him. Now, who are they pressuring? They're pressuring the man who is the youngest multi-billionaire in the history of the human race. They're pressuring the guy who has the largest social media platform in the world, and who goes to Congress and blatantly defies them and says, I'm not going to do whatever it is you tell me to do. My attorneys will get back to you. And now he doesn't say it that way, but in essence, what he's doing is he's stonewalling them the whole way through. And here's a guy now who's telling us behind the scenes, his company was conforming to the wishes of the federal administrative state, not a law passed by Congress, but by the powers in the administrative state. So I ask you, if the federal government has already set the model in COVID of, shut up and obey or else.
That's what we're seeing in Illinois.
And now Zuckerberg's telling us they came to him and said, shut up and obey or else. Now we've got this thing in Illinois. It used to be that you would sit back and look at the conservative community and say, man, don't they understand that this whole conspiratorial thing is just worn out? I've got the feeling that post-COVID, none of this stuff is even remotely close to a conspiracy anymore. This is the truth in plain sight.
Well, we can go back to the Time magazine, and it was a February 15th issue in 2021. The headline was "The Shadow Campaign to Save Democracy," and they basically lay out how they did it. So they used the mainstream media, print media, to control the narrative. They censored any opposition thought through technocracy, Facebook and Twitter. I mean, this is basically everything that we were getting, threatened and pressured. If we said on the radio, we would get fired. This is Zuckerberg himself now admitting it. And nobody, just as you predicted, by the way, in 2021, when we were reading this, and I said to you, and you go, and you watch 3-4 years from now, they'll just come right out and say, well, we told you what we did. But nobody seems to care. This Zuckerberg testimony is a real bombshell. I don't think anybody's talking about it in talk radio. Do you?
No, and the thing is that when you hear stuff like this, it gets to be to the point where you actually could get discouraged, and that's not at all.
No, that's not our intent. But
no, because it shows how desperate they really are and how thin their margins are.
But you know as well as I do, there was a time people thought you and I went nuts, that we had lost our minds. We were dangerous and reckless to be on the radio. And we were the only ones saying 3 years ago in real time, these are assumptions.
Yeah.
You need time. The same thing Zuckerberg's saying now. I don't know why it took him 3 years to do this. And now it's out and it's vindication that, yes, we were right in real time. And yes, he was wrong. But the real lesson is government shouldn't be doing this in an administrative state, period.
And that we've got an entire media structure that's so addicted to power and so addicted to being the cool kids on the playground that they will submit. And so we've got to be aware of the fact that we're listening to people who are being told what to do. Zuckerberg just told us that the federal government told him what to do, and he did it. I mean, I got to tell you something.
And in many cases, censored things that proved to be true.
That's we can't walk past that. We cannot walk past that.
And they're still doing it today.
You go full circle on this whole thing. So what's going to happen when the next COVID is really the question of abortion and the government says, shut up and obey or else? So I would love to see your latest 270 to win map. We got to talk about that, how that works, how that site works, how people can actually learn more about that. But I want to see.
It's the March Madness bracket of politics.
Yes, I want to see your 270 to win map. But I want you to look at that Planned Parenthood map and then match it up and tell me if that makes any sense.
No, I want you to walk me through how you did that because I'm still trying to picture it in my head. And again, when I look at that map, my first thought are very important swing. Follow me on this. Precincts in the Philadelphia area, in the Miami-Dade County area of Florida, or in Milwaukee, whether we're talking about precincts in Milwaukee, precincts outside of Cleveland, or precincts outside of Miami or Philadelphia. So it's swing precincts in swing districts in swing states and how that affects the 270 map with certain issues. And that's what makes it so much more fun.
So get your maps out, get your 270 to win map and bounce off the Planned Parenthood map to the electoral map. And then we got to figure out I don't know what it is yet, what it is that would make Podesta and Soros and the pro-abortion community believe that when you got 28 states to 22, and there's a lot of battles in play, especially in Ohio right now, do you actually think you can win on that issue in 2024? I don't know what they're seeing.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.